As Baba said that, a beautiful crystal ball emerged in Baba's hand. It appeared in Baba's hand. So Baba is gifting the children this crystal ball. But as that ball was reaching each child, as it reached the child, the light within that was changing, sometimes dark, sometimes light colors, so that form was changing. So Baba explained, Baba is giving the children such a crystal for the new year. It is a crystal of clarity, of purity and royalty. Let your thoughts be clear, then automatically purity within the soul will emerge, and along with that purity, you will experience also the royalty that you're going to see for the next 21 births. So Baba then said, did you see what this crystal is? I said, Baba, this looks like a crystal. It just looks like a crystal. So Baba explained, in the world, people, science creates so many new inventions, but this crystal represents the special instrument of silence. So through this instrument of silence, you are able to check yourself, how much clarity I have within the soul, how much cleanliness I have within the soul, how much do I have a clear connection with the Father. And through that, you can increase your percentage of purity of the soul, and as purity increases, then more and more royalty will emerge.
And I suppose the first transition we experience, which is the big transition, is the move from the soul world to the physical world. So coming from a region of complete silence, complete stillness, into a world where we have expression and we have experience. Coming from a place where we are in the incorporeal form, taking a physical body, and for the very first time experiencing the world, the physical world, through sense perceptions. So just imagine, just recall what that experience was like. Coming from a sea of silence and then landing into a fetus in a womb. And then as the physical body is born, for the very first time looking through eyes and also hearing through ears, and of course taste, touch and smell. But just recall, just think of that very first experience when I, the soul, would look through physical eyes of this body costume. And just imagine what would be the drishti of your very first parents in the entire cycle. So let's say, for example, your very first parents were Lakshmi and Narayan, Lakshmi Narayan the first. So just imagine how clean, how pure their drishti would have been towards you. Such a clean feeling of welcome. So pure, so divine, no attachment from the parents, no sense of clinginess, no sense of possessiveness or ownership over you. How clean that drishti was, how inviting it was, and how easy it was to simply to slip into that body and become part of the family. So such a beautiful way to transition from the world of silence into the world of matter.
Shanti. My name is Brother Stephen, and this is Brother Geoff, and we're just going to have a little bit of a conversation with each other about the Golden Age. And we were talking about it last night, and I've known Geoff since about 1997. And there's one thing that's absolutely 100% consistent with respect to Geoff, is his interest in the final stages of the cycle and the Golden Age. I don't think there would have been a conversation that I've had with Geoff that hasn't involved one of the two in the last 27 years. So he's really dived deep into this subject matter. And we just wanted to role model a conversation that you can have with yourselves, with your friends, with your other people in the centre, because we have a bit of a hypothesis. And our hypothesis is that we tend to not think too much about the Golden Age, and that it sort of is in the realm of often fantasy rather than real deep experience. We may be right or wrong. And so we just wanted to have a bit of a dive into our own thoughts about the Golden Age. But first, before I get Geoff to, I'll ask him a question. I just wanted to ask you, in terms of the first part that we've just had, and prior to us going live online, we had a little bit of a meditation commentary, and then we had the Borg message, and then Brother Yogesh talking about the thing 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 about the Golden Age. So just experiencing what he was saying in terms of having that drishti of your first parent looking into your eyes. 0% means you had no experience and it was just words. 100% it was absolute real. 50% something. So I just want you to think of a number between 0 and 100%. Just waiting for translation to catch up. So everybody's got a number? Everybody has a number? Okay. So of those of you who were between 100 and 50%, please raise your hand. Okay. And for those of you who were between 50 and 0%, please raise your hand. Okay. About half and a half. That's something for us to play with, Geoff. Yeah, so about half and half. So that's the reason why we wanted to have this conversation, so that we could make that a little bit more above the 50% and a little bit more real, and a real emerging your sanskars around that. So my first question for you, Geoff, as I said, you've been passionate about this. What's been your reason? What has been your drive behind really wanting to know more about the Golden Age? What's kept you really interested in this subject matter?
I guess for me, I mean, as a kid, this is my personal experience. As a kid, I dived heavily into science fiction and fantasy stories, So as a kid, you read a lot. Well, I did anyway. So I carried that over when I came into Gyan, but it was more of a technical side, and I wanted to know, because I always felt I had this memory of a world, which is why I read science fiction and fantasy, because the Golden Age is like a combination of both. There's science there, we have flying machines, we get around, plus we have these huge buildings, palaces, beautiful nature, like we're friends with the animals, it's a paradise. So it's like this combination between a fantasy and science fiction sort of utopia, as they say. So I read stories before Gyan, especially as a kid and before Gyan, and even sometimes in Gyan, about, you know, this merging of these two worlds, this paradise plus the science side of it, you know. So I was in the military, so I did electronics, so I did the science and the technical side of sort of like living. And as a kid, I did the art side. So when I was growing up, I was into drawing and art. So for me, merging the two, when I came into Gyan, I always wondered, I mean, for me, why I came into Gyan is I had this question about the world, where the world was going. You know, science was there, you know, but the relationships in the world and the world itself was quite a difficult place to live. Anyway, I was quite young. So I got introduced to Baba, and then of course, I mean, it doesn't happen for everyone, but for me, a lot of memories came back because I was thinking about, obviously, a pure world before Gyan. Otherwise, I wouldn't be reading these books, trying to find this environment, this world that I could relate to, you know, sort of, especially as a kid. And then coming into Gyan, you're told that, well, the world used to be like that, you know, it wasn't exactly like the stories I read. But I mean, so I often wondered about, you know, after that, about the everyday life in the Golden Age, you know, because we see some of the pictures, I mean, they're all of palaces, like big palaces, and the princes and princesses and things like that. And there's not a lot of pictures around of sort of like everyday things in the Golden Age, you know. There's no paintings or pictures of markets, you know, or because we have a city there. I mean, we have palaces, but there's also a city. Baba says, you know, the city of angels besides the river, you know, the banks of the Jamna. So there's a city there, so there must be boulevards and there must be other things. And Daddy Gulzar, in her, one class, when she had a vision of the Golden Age, she saw public vemans, you know, so there are vemans to take the public around, you know, so not everyone owns a veman in the Golden Age, which is probably a relief, I don't know, considering some of the drivers here in this world. But anyway, so there's this aspect of the Golden Age I was always interested in, about the operation of the Golden Age and the day-to-day living, you know, what it's like in the city, what it's like day-to-day. Because, I mean, for me, I mean, I would think about, I mean, just mundane things. Okay, you've got furniture makers, you've got builders, because you have to build palaces. You've got miners, because the gold has to be mined. You know, you've got tailors, because you've got to make all the clothes, you know, things like that. So, I mean, there's all this day-to-day things. And, I mean, even when I was in the retreat centre in Australia, because when I'm not here and I'm in Australia, I live in Baba's retreat centre, so I'd cook once a week, and sort of like, if you have spare time, I'd just think about, you know, I wonder what the kitchen in the Golden Age is like. I mean, Narayan's palace must have quite a few thousand sort of souls living there, so that's quite a big kitchen he must have, like in the palace, you know, because Baba said, you know, that we cook via solar, I think. Do you remember that? Baba said we cook via solar. So, I mean, these are just everyday things that, you know, that I used to think about and would pique my interest, you know, it would get my interest up. Because, I mean, here now, even at the Confluence Age, we do day-to-day mundane things, you know. So, like Baba said, I mean, we are still the human beings in the Golden Age. We're just pure with the pure matter. So there is still, you know, things we do on a day-to-day level, you know. So I always wondered what those were like, and explored a lot of like those sorts of things.
Yeah,
and,
thanks, Geoff. I think just in that 5 minutes, you've got a sense of the depth of the things that Geoff thinks about, but also the depth that we can go into, but not on just purely on a thinking level. And I think that that's just a nice segue into a series of slides that Geoff's going to show us. And that particular part that Geoff is particularly interested in is the way of living, the way of life. And Geoff's been experimenting with AI, artificial intelligence software, and he's been entering in parameters around the Golden Age, and we've been having a look at seeing what's coming up. And it sort of is a little bit different than what we've been seeing in the painted drawings that we have within the yajna. So we just thought it'd be neat just to go into that a little bit. So Geoff, why don't you take us through a few pics that you've been generating through artificial intelligence?
Okay, so I spent a couple of weeks in Mumbai, and before that I was reading about, how art is generated by artificial intelligence, that they have these massive machine learning algorithms that have scoured the internet for images and references about different things, So you type in a command and it will generate an image for you based on your command. And you can use another image as a reference also, which I've just discovered how to do in the last week. So while I was a couple of weeks in Mumbai, we were there at an animation studio doing service. In the spare time, I opened up an account for this AI and started generating images. I was just experimenting, and it was actually, I must admit, it was good fun to experiment. Because Baba says to experiment in yoga, experiment for new types of service, experiment this because it keeps your interest up, read different things. So I started generating a lot of images. So these are just a bare few, and it's just a bit of fun. Don't take them literally. It's not how it looks in the Golden Age. In fact, we don't know how the Golden Age looks. I mean, early on, when I came to Baba in my first 2 years, I had many visions. So I had 3 visions of the Golden Age. And if you were to ask me, but my first vision, say, for example, I was in a palace, I was looking at the columns and the arches, then I saw a girl putting a tray of flowers on the table. So this was the vision. If you were to ask me, what was the design of the table or what was the design of the column, I couldn't tell you. I wasn't looking at the details. I was looking at I was getting the feeling, and there was a lesson in there. I could see the soul of that sister putting the tray of flowers on the table. I could literally see the soul. So I wasn't looking at physical details. So I couldn't really duplicate or replicate what I saw. I just know what I saw because Baba gives you the vision. He implants it in your mind. So this is just a bit of fun, like this image here. It's just, okay, where do we bathe in the Golden Age? Do we bathe in the rivers? Baba says we swim in the rivers, but is it a bath? Do we bathe? Do we need to bathe in the Golden Age? So this is an interesting question. Do we have like a bathhouse? Most palaces have a bathhouse, sort of like, there's a bathhouse for everyone to use, and there's a royal bathhouse. So anyway, these are many different things I typed in to get like bedrooms, dining rooms, what would that be like in gold and all of that sort of stuff. So this is a bit of fun. So don't take it literally, these pictures, please. So this is just an image of a palace bathhouse, the first one. Can you see that up on the screen? Yeah. So like that, there's another one. You can type in the same command and it will give different images each command. No two are the same, unless you really specify. So this one, what the AI does really well is design and environments. I must admit, I was very impressed with its design and environments. It has a good AI imagination. So I just kept typing in different things, like there's another one. This is the same command typed in, so it gave me different things. There's slight changes in words, golden palace, golden columns, fine detail, things like that you would type in. So you would get these, morning sun would get a different picture, things like that. So these are some of the environments that would, to get your imagination going really about what the Golden Age is like and some of the environments. So this is like another, maybe a swimming pool or a bathhouse in your palace or your home. Baba says even the lowest subject in the Golden Age has land the size of Mount Abu. So Mount Abu is like, 40 kilometers long, I think, or 20 kilometers, 25, 30 kilometers long. So that's a lot of land and a very big house. So there's another thing. Some of the designs are quite interesting. I mean, please don't take it again literally. They're just interesting, I think. So again, you type in gold buildings with fantastic designs, or things like that. So with lotus flowers and these designs that come up are quite interesting. So all the fine detail. So there'll be a lot of fine detail, I think, in the Golden Age, personally, because when you do research on gold is very, very malleable. You can crush gold and fold it and crush it and fold it and crush it and fold it unlimited times. It will never break or split. The molecular structure of gold is such, which is one of the reasons why it's highly prized, is because you can squish it, fold it, squish it, and it keeps its integrity. Its molecular integrity. So it's a fantastic sort of like metal. So there's a bedroom. Someone asked me, about a bedroom. So I thought, oh, well, why not? What do bedrooms look like? We don't know, actually. But I've always wondered what a bedroom in the Golden Age would look like. We have to sleep, at some time, even if it's just for a few hours. So what of our bedrooms sort of look like? This is a bit of a cross between, I'm not sure. There's another one on this monitor. They look a bit dark. I'm not sure what they're like on your monitor, but they're much lighter. So there's lots of gold. And one of the things I got a surprise with, one Murli actually, was one Murli. Baba mentioned that in one Murli, this is many years ago, about maybe 3 or 4 years ago, that the doors in the Golden Age will be highly decorated or very detailed. And it just blew me away. I never thought about there are doors in the Golden Age. I never thought are there doors in the Golden? Why do you need a door? Things like that. I mean, it just surprised me that Baba mentioned the doors in the Golden Age. So, I mean, I never actually thought about that.
Geoff, we might just stop there for a minute. And I just invite you just to absorb what you've been listening to so far and what you've been watching. And just go into your own feelings of what will our palaces look like, our bedrooms. Is there any other aspects that you're curious about that you hadn't thought of before, but maybe Geoff has triggered something? Just allow yourself to be present in your palace. It's there in your memory. It's there in your heart. Just allow these images to stir your feelings, to stir your memories. Allow them to stir your feelings.
Krishna's flute.
So thanks, Geoff. I mean, that gives us a really good sense of your sense of. We might stay with the flutes for a minute. It gives you a sense of the possibilities and the extent of the things that we can think about, and that maybe where are your limits that you have placed upon your own thinking about the Golden Age, and hopefully we've begun to expand that. And this next series of slides, as Geoff been showing, is the cultural aspects, what we do in our day-to-day living. So what's some of your research beyond the AI images around what do we do in our spare time, and how do we, what do we do to have fun?
We'll go for lots of picnics, I would say. I mean, in the Golden Age, we've got a Veman handy, so, I mean, the Vemans don't crash. There are no accidents. So, like Baba says, you push a button. I mean, they probably read your thoughts and then go to anywhere. Baba says many of Baba's centers and retreat places in the world will be picnic places, So all the nature where the retreat centers are, and that will be very pure. So, and it'll be fun to go there, have a picnic, see different sorts of animals, like I'm from Australia, so Australia has these unique animals that hop, called kangaroos, that are not found anywhere else in the world, and they've never found a fossil of a kangaroo anywhere else in the world. So Australia is the only place throughout the whole cycle that has kangaroos, or that island, if you know what I mean. So in the Golden Age, it will just be, again, just an island with kangaroos on it and other wildlife. So, I mean, each place will have its own uniqueness. So we're visiting a lot around the world. I mean, we have the technology, so why not? As Baba says, we can go from here to the other side of the world in less than a telephone call. So that's a very high technology. They can't do that nowadays. Only in secret can they do that, with the secret technology they have. And that's a whole nother sort of like avenue. So, I mean, obviously Baba says, like, we go to school, so we learn. I mean, even Krishna has to go to school, so, but it's fun. It's a fun way to learn. He has to learn about the kingdom. He has to learn how to rule a kingdom. But that's his education. Others will be learning different things. His would be very specific.
What part will technology play in the learning process?
That I do not know. Whether there are holograms there, I have no idea. I mean, there might be, because hologram technology is on the rise. I saw one where there was a picture of a frame with some plants, but there was a branch in the middle with a lizard on it. And it looked very real. It was like solid, but when you put your hand in it, you just went straight through the lizard. It was made of light, but the light was being projected from all different sides into thin air. So it was this sort of new technology, so you could put it in there. So this is up and coming, So, I mean, I couldn't tell you, Steve. I mean, personally, but I doubt whether there's any iPads there in the Golden Age, so we don't have any of those sorts of cumbersome sort of things. They'll be very refined. I mean, like Baba says, even in the palaces, there are no wires in the Golden Age. Here, electricity is delivered through wires. There are no wires. We have electricity there, but there are no wires. So somehow it's generated, and the palace is lit at night in a certain way. Obviously very beautifully. So
and safe.
And it will use the gems and the diamonds to refract and reflect light, to make patterns and things like that. So
great. So some more pics for us.
So more Krishna's flutes. I mean, it does designs. I mean, I guess growing up in a middle-class family in Australia, you don't get to see fine, detailed gold things, not like the wealthy here in this world. I mean, the wealthy have like, I remember reading one article, it's the Sultan of Brunei,
We're being asked to speak slowly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. We're Australians. Australians tend to speak fast.
Particularly when we're together.
Yes, that's right. Very animated. So I remember reading about the Sultan of Brunei, and that, like, because he's a very wealthy guy, because of oil, all the handles, the taps, everything is gold plates, gold knives and forks, gold this and that. Everything is all the details and decorations are all gold. So I wondered, how can anyone live like that? I mean, I always used to wonder, how could you have a whole building made of gold? Wouldn't it be a bit boring? I mean, but obviously in the golden age there's a lot of design, because you can actually, like this, make it into, beautiful shapes and embed it with jewels and diamonds, so it actually looks really quite beautiful, So, I mean, Krishna's flute collection is quite large. I mean, sorry about that.
Does gold tarnish?
Gold doesn't tarnish, doesn't corrode, which is one of the reasons why they use it in electronics a lot. Most of the phones, anything electronic always has some sort of gold in there, because gold doesn't corrode. Other metals corrode, gold does not. And gold is used even, I don't know if you know this, by the astronauts. Their visors, you see this reflective, that's gold, because gold reflects heat and light very well, very efficiently. So they use it on the astronauts' visors, when they go out spacewalking, because the suns burn their eyes out. So these are different shaped palaces. I mean, this actually was interesting. I loaded one of Baba's pictures in the art department into the AI and told it to generate palaces. So this is what it came up with, some very interesting designs. So, I mean, of course, there's some more. Some of them are actually quite very nice. Some of them are a bit spiky. So that's just the interpretation by the AI. So, but very nice environments. Of course, in the Golden Age, nature is very pure, and the animals are very friendly. One of the visions I had in the Golden Age, the second vision I had, was of a princess. She was leaning down, and all these little animals were coming to her. She was either, I'm not sure I can't remember if she was feeding them or just playing with them. So these are like squirrels and birds, and so it was something like out of a Disney movie. You see some of the animated Disney movies about the princesses in the forest, all the animals are her friends, and she plays with it. So it's very much like that, but in the real world.
I can just see our translators.
Sorry.
Yes. Just speeding up their talk, translating your
I'll put long gaps between.
Yeah. So any other specifics with respect to the AIs that are really interesting? So you've got buildings, you've got bedrooms, you've got bathhouses, you've got jewelry. Any other sort of...
You can try, and I tried to generate a Radha and Krishna. So generating humans is quite interesting. It cannot do hands very well. The hands always have, sometimes they have 12 fingers on one hand. Sometimes you get 3 hands coming out. There's 2 sitting there, and there's a 3rd hand coming out somewhere there. So it's very funny, some of it. But of course, what the AI is doing is referencing the images that is already available now. And of course, historically, if you look at India, there is not many written records for India past 1,000 years. Here in Bharat, they never kept very records because they always lived in the present. They never lived in the past. Well, I can't say that because they've written the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, and these are memories of the past, but and fantastical stories. But they never, like the Europeans or the Romans, recorded intricately what they did on a day-to-day level, or kept. And of course, when the different people came from outside, of course, many buildings were destroyed, whole cities were destroyed. And I remember there was one city in the south of India called Vijayanagar, and it's where the ruins of Hampi are in south. I think it's in Karnataka. And one European traveller came through, and he said it was them. And he was, I think he was Italian, so he had, some of, like Venice and some of those cities. He said it was the most beautiful city he ever saw, But of course, the Muslims came and destroyed the city because it had a lot of statues in it. So, so that sort of thing. So a lot of the history is lost here in Bharat, you know. So even I think the British took more than 100 years, nearly 200 years, to try and piece together the history of Bharat, you know, because it was fragmented. There was only fragments around, you know, that they could actually go by, you know. And we know that it's not accurate anyway, this world's interpretation of history. Yes, of course we know, because the cycle's only 5,000 years. So, but anyway, here we are, some more sort of architecture, sitting rooms. Someone asked what a sitting, we have a sitting rooms, we would sit and chat. But I mean, these are some of the palaces. I tried to get big palaces because one of the visions, the third Golden Age vision I had, I was standing on a hill looking over a palace. And what really, not shocked, but surprised me was how big it was. I mean, it was sprawling. There's this word in English called sprawling, which means it just goes on, you know. So when I was standing on this hill looking at this palace was huge. It went on for ages. But it wasn't just one building. There were courtyards and gardens and, you know, gazebos and, you know, things like that all in. But it was a massive palace. And very early on in the 80s, we had a class by a daddy called Devi Daddy. I think it was Devta Daddy or Devi Daddy. And she gave a class on the coronation of Lakshmi and Narayan. She had seen in trance from the very start to the very end of the coronation of Lakshmi and Narayan. So it was really, really interesting sort of class. I often wondered if they've got a digital copy of it or if it's recorded anywhere. But at the end of that class, she said that Narayan's palace was 300 kilometers long. And I was like, what? You know, how is it possible, you know? So I went and asked Shiluben, and she said that's his personal estate. It's not just the building, you know. So his building would be not that big. So anyway, because it would be, I don't know, what would you fill the space with, you know? So when I tried to make the AI do a large palace, it just, of course, its references to Indian architecture are the Taj Mahal and very little other places, you know, which are all, by Golden Age standards, very small, you know. So, but there's a big sort of like courtyard style sort of that came up after just a description of a gold palace courtyard, sort of, you know, with the fountains and things. So there's some designs. It gives you, when you type in your command, it gives you 4 different images. So these are the 4 different images of golden palaces in lots of trees and city streets.
So, Geoff, we might call it a day with respect to the pictures, and
Yep.
But I wanted to get a sense of the feeling from the audience in terms of how today's session has helped you maybe think a little bit more expansively, or give you a list of things to explore in your own curiosity. So if you could just raise your hands if you feel like you've got something more to think about in the Golden Age, with respect to the Golden Age. So we've got 2 people.
Two
okay,
people, that's good.
3. Translation's still coming through.
0.
Okay, great. So we're going
There's
to...
Krishna. Oh,
Yep.
yeah, these aren't.
The figures and what they draw on with respect to those pictures.
Because it's referencing Kali Yuga, huh? So when it references Kali Yuga, I mean, this I tried a bit of a cartoon type. This is Aladdin, using Aladdin style. I don't know if anyone's seen the animated film Aladdin as you were kids. So this is that style, but it does do nice designs. These are Vemans. Some swan Vemans I typed in to see what it's like, a gold swan-shaped flying machine, you know, called a Veman. So some of the designs are quite fantastical. Some look like dragons. Some do look like a little bit of sort of like stylized swans. But they're all quite fantastical, sort of like, you know.
Great.
Yeah. So.
All right, thanks, Geoff. We hope that we've given you something to explore with your own thinking and your own meditation, and to emerge your own experience of the Golden Age and let the magic happen. So we're now going to finish with a video.
What about my relationship with the body? I'm naturally soul conscious without even knowing what the soul is. I look through the windows of the eyes, I listen through the windows of the ears, an innocent visitor to a house which is not me. My hands and my feet are just physical extensions of my being. No action is wasted. So all of the organs are working perfectly together. There's no pain, no discomfort. The body itself is extremely light, almost translucent. So a practice to become more golden age-ish. Use the body as an extension of the soul. Just think about it. But one thing working together.
So how will the eyes of the deities be? You know, my feeling is that they'll be like little light bulbs, streaming light, purity, and joy into the atmosphere and into the environment. We won't be able to see that light, but we feel that light. And it's almost like the eyes will sparkle and the eyes will dance. And as the eyes sparkle and dance, they're just filling the whole of this material world with those vibrations of purity, peace, love, and happiness. And one of the things which I really love about the eyes of the deities is that they are completely innocent. You know, sometimes I think there's nothing more attractive than innocence. But the deity eyes, as much as they're streaming light, are so deep. You can look into those eyes and just go so deep, deep, deep. Because they connect directly with the soul. There's no barrier in between, there's nothing held back. The eyes of the deities are absolutely transparent. They really are the windows of the soul. And so that innocence is that you can look so deep into the eyes of the deity and feel welcomed, that you are welcomed right into their inner being in such a sweet and natural way. But also I feel the eyes are the way we communicate. They're not through words. It actually will be through our eyes that we speak to each other. All the feelings and beauty of life will be expressed through your eyes, and everyone will understand. So the vibrations from the eyes, the drishti from the eyes, will convey exactly what sort of person I am and my specialties and my beauty. And the vehicle of that communication obviously is our drishti. And the drishti of the deity soul through the eyes are the expression, the eyes will dance, the eyes will sparkle, the eyes will glow. And this is the language of the deities. Actually, the deities speak through their eyes. All the subtle communication radiates here and is felt and understood so well.